I ask, have you ever walked away from a business, any type of business, and you thought to yourself, wow, those people are amazing? Well, that's what I help my clients do, achieve amazing levels of service. And they go, oh, I get it, because they can internalize that question. And if your people listening to this podcast say, okay, I'm going to be that role model, I'm going to deliver an amazing level of service, their clients are going to say, wow, you're amazing. And they're going to start thinking, how can I be amazing to my customers and clients?
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today is going to be an excellent episode. Our guest is a trusted customer service and experience expert. As well, he is a New York Times best-selling author. His mission is to help companies deliver amazing customer service experiences, and we're so happy to have him on the show. Welcome to the podcast, Shep Hyken.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for having me, Michael.
It is our honor, and I'm sure the listeners are on the edge of their seats because we have a New York Times best-selling author on the show. I think I think that might be a first for the Successful Bookkeeper Podcast.
Wow.
But it's great to have you.
Hey, great to be here, and I'm excited because we're going to talk about something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, let's do it. Well, tell me, how did you become this person that is so passionate and delivering such amazing change in the world around customer service?
Well, I mean, it goes back to when I was a kid. My parents taught me the right thing. They taught me, say thank you, do polite things. I had my own little business when I was 12 years old, doing birthday party magic shows, which I did, throughout my teenage years, 12, 13, 14, 15, worked my way into nightclubs. But throughout that entire time, I knew what customer service was and didn't even know it was called customer service. It was just doing the right thing. It was very common sense. So I'm graduating college. I'm working with this oil company and they sell, and I did not have a job. And by the way, this is less than a year out of college. And I thought I was going to work for them the rest of my life. And I saw a couple of professional speakers, motivational type speakers, and I thought, I could do that. I had that little entertainment background. I had, business and going to college and working for a company. So I wrote a speech about customer service and started doing it. And that's how it all started. And I started reading, researching, doing more, playing back on my personal experiences. And over the years of the research and all the different clients I've worked with, I've developed an expertise. The other thing is, Michael, and this is what, I even sometimes say to myself, gosh, I don't have a PhD in this. I don't have a master's in business, an MBA, so what qualifies me? And yeah, there's a lot of experience there and there's a lot of research. But one of the things I pride myself on is the ability to deliver it in a way that's understandable to others.
Beautiful. And that's what I think is most valuable. It's what people need.
Yep.
And just listening to you speak, what I really hear is this concept of customer service. And we have, our listeners are small business owners that often, probably a lot of the times, they don't get the bandwidth to even think about that concept. And so you've gone out and spent your greater part of your life, really, your career, thinking and understanding and translating and trying to figure out what's the simplest concept to help people like our listeners improve their customer service. And now, why should they really care about customer service?
Right. Well, there's a couple of questions in that one question. And I think back to when I was a kid, I was always the one that said thank you to everybody. And I think a big part of service is showing gratitude and making sure the people you work with or do business with know how much you appreciate the opportunity to do so. And there's no shortage of people saying thank you. Actually, there is a shortage. I think that it's the reverse. I'm surprised when I go into a store and I pay for something and the person bags up whatever it is I bought and they hand it to me without saying thank you. And I look at them and I go, hey, thanks for taking care of me. And they look at me like I have two heads. So the key is we need to be the kind of person that steps up, that expresses the gratitude. And by the way, that may be the very first step to making a customer feel appreciated, is to simply let them know you appreciate them and saying thank you. And there's many ways you can say thank you verbally. If it's a great client that you've done business with, that spent a lot of money with you, why aren't you sending a thank you note every once in a while? Why not a personal holiday card that just doesn't have your name signed on it, but it has a note that's personal that you don't send to everybody? And I think that's just a step of starting it. People say to me, what's the simplest concept of service that I can think of that would help somebody? Is to recognize that every interaction you have is an opportunity for that customer to form an impression. Every interaction. So it should be a good one, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I love what you're saying, and I think this is such an interesting story that you told around the checkout. And I've become desensitized to that, right? I think it's just, we're so far away from why anybody's doing anything. It's like, why are you at the till serving me? Like who actually is benefiting in this relationship? And you're right. It's a disconnect between, hey, you're in our store. Thank you for being here. My job depends on you actually shopping here. And I think people just sort of become entitled, I guess, to whatever it is that they have in this fast moving world. But that simple thing of just saying, you know what, I appreciate you, by saying thank you and actually believing it and thinking it, is brilliant. That in itself.
It's, it's uncommon common sense.
Yeah. We need more of that uncommon common sense. Let's keep that theme going. So you mentioned just saying thank you, these notes, just giving a little bit of the human experience, I guess, I hear in that, is sending a note. What have you seen in terms of your customers after they've worked with you and read some of your things? What are the things that they've taken on and implemented?
Sure. So, and by the way, it could be sending a note, an email, a text message, if that's the way somebody likes to communicate, any sign of gratitude. So to the question, what have my customers done and clients done when we work with them? Well, so many times if I'm asked to do a speech, I focus on, here's things that you can do right away when you go back to work. But if you really want to change a company, it has to start with the owner and the leadership of a company. And I realize a lot of the people that are listening to this podcast are in small businesses. Maybe they're solo entrepreneurs. So you've just got to make a conscious decision. Am I going to be customer or client focused or not? And if you decide to go forward with it, define what your vision is. What does customer service look like to you? And I always like to talk about what I call the customer service mantra. And that is a sentence long, one sentence that defines who you are and what you are when it comes to service. And my favorite example of that is the Ritz-Carlton, who uses 9 words. We're ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen.
I love that one.
Another one that's 3 words long is Ace Hardware, the helpful place. Okay. Or helpful hardware place. 3 words. And what their goal is they know they provide good service. They know they compete against huge stores, big box stores like, a Lowe's or a Home Depot that also provide good service. So what they want to do is take it to the next level. They want to provide helpful service, which means when you go in there and you have a project, they're going to ask you a lot of questions to make sure that you walk out with everything you need so you don't have to come back for something you forgot. I mean, imagine going in to buy a can of paint and getting home and realize you forgot to buy the brushes. Somebody at Ace Hardware will ask you, do you need brushes with that can of paint? And that's in its most basic example. But that's what the folks at Ace have tried to do. They've tried to bump it up with the Ritz-Carlton, where ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. They are saying, hey, when you come to work for us, this is how we behave. And all of the training they do, both at Ace and at Ritz and any other company that creates this type of a vision, the training is toward that vision or that service statement, that mantra, if you will.
Beautiful. And I can see that, for our listeners, taking on a concept like this, whilst it's going to be good for their business, they're working with who their clients are the owners of small, medium-sized businesses as well. Is that their mantra can almost be treat our customers well and, be customer focused, but as well help our clients be customer focused, because the training and listening that they're getting right now is valuable for their customer base.
So maybe it's setting the example, where I would love to say that our company is a role model for service. We don't just teach it. We actually model the behavior. If you call us, we're going to call you back in a really short period of time. We're going to follow up with you. We typically don't drop the ball. I'm not going to say that we're perfect. Nobody's perfect. But when there is a problem, we step up, we apologize, we acknowledge it, we fix what needs to get fixed, we own whatever comes our way, and we always do it fast. But I think that's, but when you become, when somebody says, wow, let's pull back and let me tell you, when people ask me, what do you do for a living, Shep? I have a real simple answer. I don't just tell them, hey, I'm a customer service expert. I ask them a question. I ask, have you ever walked away from a business, any type of business, and you thought to yourself, wow, those people are amazing? Well, that's what I help my clients do, achieve amazing levels of service. And they go, oh, I get it, because they can internalize that question. And if your people listening to this podcast say, okay, I'm going to be that role model, I'm going to deliver an amazing level of service, their clients are going to say, wow, you're amazing. And they're going to start thinking, how can I be amazing to my customers and clients?
Absolutely. And they're going to think, how can I live without working with a company that offers that? And I would think that this, in terms of differentiating yourself in a crowded and competitive market, service is one thing that can do that.
Right. Yeah. So service is the differentiator for so many companies. And here's why. And I want everybody here to hear this, because it's a really important message. I know that bookkeeping, accounting, services, you think that your customers are going to compare you to a competitor who does what you do when it comes to service. That is not the case anymore. It used to be. But now what they're going to do is compare you to the great experience that they just had at whatever business they just recently went to. It could be a restaurant, a hotel. It could be one of their vendors. And they're going to say, why can't this person be as good as the company that the guy I buy my car from, the restaurant that I go to? So I think it's really important to recognize the bar is raised. Our customers are smarter than ever. They know what good service is. And the people teaching them good service are the rock stars in their world. And we need to keep up with those rock stars. And we need to compete, not just with our competitors, but in all levels of service.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Now, you've got a lot of ideas around, and you've simplified things very well in terms of the ways to improve service in a business. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So we're talking, that's the course that we had talked about earlier, the 5 ways to create customer amazement.
Yeah, 5 ways. So a little bit about those 5 ways would be great.
You know what? I wish I could tell you what those, no.
Don't worry, we can edit it out. You could go grab the sheet.
No. The truth is, there's many, many more ways than 5 ways to create that service. But what I think is important for everybody to understand is that, I have 50 different points that I make when I do my customer service presentations. But some of the basics are this. Every moment of truth, every interaction that you have with a customer is an opportunity to create an impression. And it should be a good one. And that comes from Jan Carlson. That's Jan Carlson's concept of moments of truth and how he turned a business around that was losing, failing, potentially going out of business, and made it successful and admired within his industry. And anybody can do that. They just have to be very proactively aware of every engagement and encounter and interaction they have with a customer. There's so many different concepts, but one of the several of them that I think is really important, and whether they're not necessarily in the course that we're talking about, but let's give you some good ones. I'll tell you one that is in the course that I think is really important. When I'm doing my speeches, I'm calling it quality at every turn. You need to have great service combined with a great product. In other words, being the best at something, if you don't combine the service with it, it doesn't matter. And I'll give you an example that comes from the course. I talk about cable TV. And if you think about it, I'm old enough to remember before we had cable TV. And that meant there were like 4 or 5 channels, and that was it. You had your choice. And they weren't 24 hours a day. At midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, they'd go off the air and they'd come back on at 5 or 6 in the morning. Then cable TV came along, and all of a sudden, there were multiple channels that we could watch from different networks. They even had HBO back then, and Showtime, I guess, came along. I remember MTV back in the late 70s, I believe. So all of this came along, and then cable started to grow with their quality and offerings. And today you can, record and watch anytime you want. Very few people actually watch TV, watch the show, unless it's news or sports. They watch TV at the time it's actually on.
That's right. Absolutely right.
Think about it. So, it's an amazing invention what cable TV has done. So I set this up that it's a brilliant, beautiful thing. I could be on the other side of the world, pull out my mobile phone and watch what's on my TV set at home. It's truly amazing. But here's the problem. Cable TV, the industry, has done a really poor job when it comes to customer service. They're known as one of the laggards. Now, I think they're doing better, and certain things have made them do better. There was a debacle a couple of years ago with Comcast, where somebody tried to disconnect their service, and the sales rep or customer service rep kept drilling this customer for reasons why. And customers said, I just don't want it anymore. Just disconnect me. And the way it was handled was terrible. And the customer actually recorded the incident. So I think that after that went viral, the cable company said, we need to clean up our act. Because typically, if you want cable TV installed in your home, you have to take a half a day off work without pay to wait for the cable guy to show up. That's not very customer focused, is it?
No, it's bizarre.
Yeah, but it's one of the coolest inventions, greatest technologies ever, because it keeps us entertained, et cetera, et cetera. So what would happen if the Ritz-Carlton or Apple Computer or Amazon or Zappos or one of those great customer focused companies decided, hey, I want to get into the cable TV business? Do you think they're going to make people wait around for an hour, 2 hours, however long? No, they're going to figure out ways around it. And the ways around it today that some of the cable companies are doing is they'll say, hey, we're going to assign you a time, and it will be, an hour time frame, not a half day time frame. We're going to call you when we're on our way so we can meet you there. We're going to extend our hours so that we have hours that are after typical business hours, because most people do have to work. We'll do weekends so we can install and put your cable in over the weekend. So they're starting to do things that are starting to be more customer focused and not operations focused. So I know I went long-winded on this, but there's a great example of you can't have a great product and not provide great service, because ultimately customers, by the way, will switch their cable TV company. If you've got the greatest product in the world and you don't give great service, they'll find somebody that's close to what you do that treats them a little bit better. Conversely, by the way, you can have the greatest service in the world, but if you're lousy at what you do, the customer doesn't care how friendly you are. So it takes both together to make it work.
Absolutely. And I love that analogy, that story that you've just shared, in that we think of companies like Netflix and Amazon and these different companies that are actually going, and they're saying, well, what do these customers actually want today? What do they need and want? What are they complaining about? And they're delivering services and products in a way that it works for the customers today. And so cable's now having to catch up and go and ask their customers. So one thing that I've taken away is just ask the customers, what is good for you? And
right. What's right for you? What's good for you? Am I willing to bend and be flexible and do what it takes for you? My accountant in tax season, I'll call them up about 3 weeks before my returns are due, and tell him, hey, I'm ready. And he'll go, well, when do you want to come in? I go, well, when are you available? He says, other than when I'm sleeping, I'm available. Can we do it on Saturday? Absolutely. It doesn't matter. He's there. And I think that's sometimes what we need to do for our clients as well.
Absolutely. And it's just knowing what it is that fits for you. If you're the business, you get to decide, and there's consequences to either way, right? Your accountant has consequences to working all hours. I'm sure his wife or his partner is, it's like there's consequences, but you get to decide, and you have to decide what it is that your customer wants and understand what your customer wants and put those two things together. But if you're not willing to do it, there may be somebody else in the marketplace that is. And so we have to take that just like cable, right? Hey, let's not do anything about what our customers are complaining about. Oh, wait a second. There's now Netflix and Amazon, and they're going to do it exactly the way our customers are wanting it. So we better wake up, or we're going to be like Kodak.
I know. I mean, Netflix is a major disruptor to the cable industry, and Amazon's figured it out with, their own network, and they've created. And by the way, I love what Amazon's done, because Amazon decided they didn't want to compete. I mean, they are competing, but the way I read it is this: Amazon has figured out what the customer wanted. Okay, they want convenience, so they're going to charge a membership to be part of their Prime program. And Jeff Bezos, when asked, why are you doing all this expensive programming for TVs and movies and things like that? And he said, well, we need to come up with a way to keep our members happy and want to keep paying the fee, because not all of them utilize the Prime service just for shipping. So he's a brilliant man. It's not just about, hey, let's get into the TV business. Let's get into the customer retention business. Yeah. So there's another lesson learned there. It's not quite customer service, but some brilliant marketing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's very interesting. And I mean, for the listeners, these are really big examples. I mean, they're massive companies, but all of the concepts are absolutely applicable to a business of your size. And so it's just that going right back to the beginning of the interview. Are you going to be customer focused or are you not? And you don't have to have, you don't have to offer free cable TV to have your customers be happy, but you have to understand what do they want and how can you help them. Now, I have a great question for you, and then I know we'll probably start to wrap it up, and we'll learn more about the course that you have, Shep. But this one it comes up, right? Bookkeepers, accountants, all of them, they deal with sensitive things like people's money, and there's timelines, and if sometimes customers, you ask them to do something, they don't do it, and that's a consequence for them. And so you could have customers that are upset, and it's out of our listeners' control, but they've got an upset customer. What would be your advice for them?
Well, first, let's get rid of the rumor that the customer is always right, because they aren't.
Okay. Yes, that's refreshing. So I love that. That's good to hear.
Let's say this together. The customer is not always right. Are you ready, Michael? Let's go. The customer is not always right. And once we understand that, then we can start to work with the customer. So when there's a problem, and by the way, when they're not right, that's okay. You still need to treat them like they're the customer, because they are always the customer, and they need to be treated with dignity and respect. So when there is a problem, and by the way, I tell my clients this all the time. Hey, we're coming up on your date. There's several things I need. And by the way, I say date. I do speaking engagements. So we're coming up on your speaking engagements. And when we sent you our agreement, we sent you a couple of other documents that we don't have back yet. In order for me to give you the best speech, you need to fill out this questionnaire and have an appointment where we sit down and spend an hour together, so I understand who your audience is, who the goals are. And by the way, I don't need this to be successful, but if you want it to be better than it could be, we need to spend this time together. And I tell the client right up front, this is what I expect from you. And if you don't do it, this is what you can expect. And I think all of our bookkeepers and accountants, things don't come in on deadline. We need to have a system that triggers reminders for our clients. But we also need to let the clients know that if you don't get it to me on time, I can't guarantee we're going to be able to turn it around in time. So there is responsibility on both parts. And I believe it's it's so important to be clear that if the customer doesn't hit a deadline, they can't expect you to do that. So spell it out right up front. Communication. It's key. But back to the customer not being right. If they make a mistake, you need to acknowledge the problem and say, you know what, and you need to apologize for it. That's the first two things. Even if it's not your fault, I'm really sorry this happened. I'm not, I would understand. Let's talk about what happened. Do you remember we talked about when we started that there were certain forms that had to be filled out, dates that had to be met? Yes. Did I get you all of that? Yes. All right. We're going to try to fix this the best way we can, but you need to get that information to me. Do you see what's happening? We have to communicate. We have to go back. By the way, don't ever say it's not my fault, it's your fault. Let's look at the history and figure out what happened. Handle this subject very carefully because it is sensitive. They're upset, and in many cases, they're just wrong. And if they are wrong, you need to do it in such a way that gives them the confidence and gives them a little bit of control back. And so ask them, get you what you need, and then turn around. And I'm just using that as one example.
I think it's a great example.
Does that make sense to you?
It makes great sense. And I think that there's something, the way you said it is it's subtle, but it's very important. I'm sorry that this happened to you. That is, right. It's an apology, and it's not that you did it, that I did it, or anybody did it. It's just, I'm sorry that this has happened.
Right. And so you're not going to say, hey, I told you this had to be, returned to me. Say, look, we needed to get this in. We obviously don't have it now. So let's figure out what we're going to do right now to move this thing forward. Let's not rehash the past, but it's clear, and I'm just, some form wasn't signed. Something wasn't, done on a timely basis. But what can we do to make it right now? What's the best thing that we could do? I have a friend of mine that talks about the relentless solution focus, the RSF as he calls it. And everything you do, no matter how bad it is, there's always something that's going to make it better. Figure out what it is.
Yeah.
It could just mean taking a breath of fresh air and stepping back and just resting for a moment.
Absolutely. Well, I love that. I think it's very disarming, and I think it gets to that solution-focused opportunity, which is brilliant. Shep, let's talk about, you've got a great course that you're offering. I know it's not going to be available forever, and so tell us a little bit about that. And of course, we're going to have a link on our episode for people to get access to that, but give them a little bit of a teaser as to what you're offering.
Sure. And when I say offering, it truly is an offer. It's a gift. You asked me, what could we give away to the audience that would be of great value?
Yes.
So for about the next 30 days, we're going to leave this live. And it is one of our courses. It's called 5 Ways to Creating Customer Amazement. We normally sell it for $49. There will be a link that is associated with this podcast. And all you need to do is click on it. You'll self-enroll. And you'll set up your username will be your email address. You'll set up whatever password you want, and you'll have access to this course for 30 days. And we're going to give you access for 30 days, but once you enroll, you'll have it for 30 days. It's not a long course. It'll take you 20, 30 minutes. But you know what? It's what you're going to need to get into the right mindset, to get focused, to get aligned with the whole concept of delivering an amazing customer experience.
Absolutely. And I know, as we talked about, Shep, this podcast, if you're listening right now, maybe this offer of this great gift that Shep has put up is not available, but you've got a great book as well. Tell us a little bit about your book. I think that's one great place that people could go and just start to consume some of the great work you've done. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. And before I do that, if somebody's watching this or listening to this a year from now, if you click on the link, we'll make sure you get something. Okay, so if you're listening to this as it comes out, we're going to leave it live for 30 days. But I promise you, when you click on that link a year or a year and a half or 2 years from now, there'll be something of value waiting for you. My most recent book is called Amaze Every Customer Every Time. Love this book. There's 52 tools in this book. I call them tools. They're tips, tactics, whatever you want to call them, that will help you create a better customer experience. And these are tools that anybody listening, you're the perfect group for this. And I'll tell you why. You're smaller. And when you're smaller, it means you're nimble and quick, and you can implement any one of these ideas quickly. Now, there's 52. I look at one a week. and say, okay, I can do this. At the end of the week, think about what did I do to implement this? And, just go through each one of them one at a time. And if they resonate with you, go for it. The book's available at Amazon.com, and maybe it's been out a couple of years now. It might still be at your local bookstores.
That's awesome. I love it. And I think I love the concept of, I'm very tactical. So I love, here's a bunch of things you can do one, measure it, see if it worked, go on to the next one. That's fantastic. We're going to have all of these links up on the podcast episode. So if you're listening on your device, you could there's a link there. It'll take you right to it. You can get to all these fabulous links that Shep's going to be there. And I have to say, I love the fact that there's going to be something awesome at the end of whatever link you have, regardless of when the listeners are. And that's just your amazing customer service philosophy. And so thanks for sharing that as well with us, Shep.
Oh, my pleasure. And I hope everybody here utilizes it, because it really is a great value. We have clients that pay us $49 for this course. We're giving it to everybody listening at this point for the next 30 days for no charge.
Beautiful.
Love that. Yep.
Go get it. Start thinking, make a decision to be customer focused. You will reap the rewards that we've heard about on this episode today. Shep, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was excellent. There were so many gold nuggets that I think our listeners are just absolutely going to love.
Well, it's my pleasure, and look forward to doing it again with you, Michael. Have me back anytime.
Oh, thank you. That wraps another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's guest and to get access to all sorts of valuable free business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.